Hey Facebook, so I am back with another Tantra video, and this one is actually going to be on 3 different points of Tantra. One of them is going to be the 7th, which is acceptance. And so with acceptance, for me, what's been coming up with that is it's accepting that I'm not always going to get what I want, but knowing that I'm always going to get what I need. It's accepting what was, what is, what will be, what may never be. It's accepting the things that I can't change, but refusing to accept the things that I can change. It's accepting the apologies that I'll never get. It's accepting people for who they are and where they are in life and loving them anyway, and, you know, just respecting that they're on their own path and doing their own thing, and I'm gonna do mine, you know. And, you know, it's accepting that the universe is gonna bring everything to me that's for my higher good. And, you know, with acceptance comes a deeper level of self-love and wisdom and self-acceptance, basically. So that's really all I got right now for acceptance. Maybe more will come up later, but the 2 that are really coming through for me the most are communication and understanding. So, you know, they go hand in hand pretty much. You know, the key, you know, to understanding is communication. And, you know, we underestimate the value of direct, sincere, honest, verbal communication, because we've gotten so lost in this age of technology where we communicate through text or messenger or, you know, blogs and, you know, Facebook posts or other social media types, and we don't really communicate in a healthy, authentic way. We're missing out on that, basically. But you know, in the realm of Tantra, the way we help couples is to have them do tools and exercises to strengthen the communication, and, you know, which essentially is, you know, strengthens their intimacy, because without that deep level of communication, you're not really having true intimacy. You have couples that have been together for 20 years and they don't talk. You know, they don't really have real conversation beyond the everyday mundane bullshit. You know, what did you do at work? What, you know, what's for dinner? They're not going deep, you know, and most people don't go deep in their conversations, and it's really sad, really, because I feel like, you know, true intimacy happens when 2 people are brave enough to come together and sit together in their collective darkness and formally introduce each other to their monsters and their demons, and figure out a way to slay them together. You know, that's intimacy. That's a relationship. That's authentic communication. That's reality. You know, being able to say, you know, let me introduce you to my narcissistic monster. Let me introduce you to my jealous monster. Let me introduce you to my insecure monster. It's being able to sit in that darkness with each other and introduce each other to the worst parts of yourself authentically, and, you know, figure out a way to work through that, you know, rather than denying it. True intimacy happens in the darkness, not in the light, you know. So, you know, you have to be willing to go deep and go dark to really get there in a relationship, and so many don't take the time to do it. And I've been guilty of that myself. You know, I've been abstinent for the last 8 years, but during these years I keep drawing this relationship dynamic to me where I draw men that I end up with some kind of nonverbal flirtation thing with online, whether it be through, you know, music or blogs or poetry or something. There's always a connection that gets established, but it never goes beyond that, because as soon as I try to take it into the realm of real conversation, they run. Like, they can't handle it. Like, they know that with me, we're not going to talk about the mundane bullshit. We're going to talk about the shadow shit, and they're not ready to go there yet. They're scared to death to go there. You know, I had a guy last year that was, you know, he and I had that little thing going, this little telepathic kind of thing almost. And, you know, I reached out, and he was going through a rough time, and I said, you know, if you need a friend, I'm here. And he was like, okay. And then one day he reached out with a weird email, and it was something that I was interested in and wanted to know more. And so when I tried to engage him in that conversation and say, well, what's this about? You know, tell me more. Let's talk about this, you know. He ghosted, like, never heard from him again. And then he jumped right into this thing with another woman, and I'm like, oh, okay. So, you know, because he knew that we weren't going to just shoot the shit. We were going to have some real conversation, and that scared the hell out of him, and he ran. So he's not the first, you know, there's been many, you know, and I've had this little telepathic thing with so many people, like, where, you know, like a few years ago, I had a guy that was living in another state. We never actually even met, but we had, you know, talked on the phone a few times, and I went to sleep one night, and I was really in that hypnagogic realm where I was half sleeping, half awake, and, you know, I heard him call my name, and I jumped up, and I thought, well, maybe something's wrong. So I went online to see if he was online, you know, for some reason, see if he was there, something was going on. And he hadn't logged in a while. I went to message him, and as I'm sitting there thinking, should I message him? Like, am I, you know, kind of crazy that I experienced this, that I thought I heard him calling my name? And it was so clear as day, you know, like, it wasn't a dream. It was like I could really hear it in my head. And as I'm sitting there debating on whether or not I should message him, he pops on. And this is like middle of the night when both our asses should be sound asleep. So I just had to laugh at that, and how, you know, connected we are consciously, you know, on a conscious level. There's days when I'll be thinking about a song. It's in my head all day, that song, or, you know, an idea or a thought or image. And, you know, at some point during the day, I'll go online, and that person has posted that song or a picture or a blog, something that has been on my mind all day. And I'm like, holy shit. It's like we have this telepathic link, and not something that we're consciously aware of or doing, but it's there. And, you know, it's really unique and beautiful to have that telepathic conscious link with someone, and be able to understand each other without the verbal. But there comes a point where you have to have the verbal, because if you don't, then you don't really ever get out of the superficial. You know, you stay stuck in that, you know, and the bullshit, you know, and the games and the manipulation and the fear. And if you can't really have that conversation, if you can't sit and introduce each other to your monsters, then they're never going to get acquainted, and you're never going to figure out a way to slay them. You're just always going to have them, and you're going to go from one relationship to the next with that same dynamic. And I've just gotten to a point in my life where I don't want that kind of connection anymore. I mean, I do. I appreciate that connection with someone, and being able to have that nonverbal communication, but if you don't ever get to the point where you are having real conversation and talking about real shit, then that's not a real relationship. And it's just, I don't know what it is. It's an online flirtation thing, whatever. It's not something I could take seriously. So, you know, at this stage in my life, I'm looking for someone that I can take seriously, and that can communicate in a verbal way with me. And, you know, I've had this before. I've had that level of verbal connection with someone where, you know, we had endless conversation. Like we, you know, we connected on that intellectual level before we ever even got near the physical level. You know, it was about 2008. I was, you know, single, and I met a guy online. He was from Italy. He was just here in town for a few months working, and he was going to go back. And he kept asking me out on a date, and I kept, you know, finding excuses not to go, because I was like, well, why bother? You know, it's not going to go anywhere. You know, I can't just be with somebody that it's not going to evolve into anything, you know. And then one day I just said to hell with it, and I went for it, and we went on this date, and it was the most amazing date that I've ever had. You know, we started out at a sushi restaurant for lunch. We ended up at another restaurant for dessert. We ended up at a coffee shop for hours. Then we ended up at another restaurant eating dinner late at night and being there for hours. I mean, this was a 14-hour date, and it was endless conversation. Like, we barely touched on the topic of sex. The only physical contact we had was when he kissed me at the end of the night, and everything else was just, you know, it was all intellectual. It's all we did was talk about everything, you know, movies, books, you know, art, poetry. Like, we had so much in common. And even after that date, we went on other dates where they were very lengthy, and we talked and talked and talked, and I kept thinking, you know, when are we going to run out of things to talk about? And we never did. It was just this endless fascination with each other, and it's because we both were endlessly fascinated with the world and had, you know, so much passion about everything in life, so we never ran out of anything to talk about. And at one point he went to Miami for a week for work, and when he came back, he asked me out to dinner, and we sat down to dinner that night, and he started trying to talk me into going to his house that night to sleep with him. And so I asked, you know, when was the last time he had had sex with someone? And so nonchalant, so easygoing, without even, you know, pausing to think about it, he was just like, last week in Miami. And I had that little moment of like, asshole, you know, like we've been talking for like, you know, all these weeks and going on these dates and getting close, and you're just gonna go off and have sex with someone. It's kind of fucked up. But then I thought about it, and I was like, well, you know, he went into it with the same concept and the same idea that I did, that this wasn't gonna go anywhere. You know, we weren't gonna get married and have babies and live happily ever after. It was just a romance, a short-term romance. But what hit me in that moment was that, you know, like his honesty, just being able to own what he was and what, you know, like he basically validated what I knew. I knew he was a player, but he validated it verbally and said, this is, you know, what I do, you know, I mean, you're not going to try to hide anything. He could have had the mentality of, I've put a lot of work and money into courting this woman, and, you know, I want to make sure she sleeps with me, so I'm gonna lie and say, oh, I haven't been with anybody. But he just owned it. And, you know, that to me was a player in his healthy masculine. And most people think that those two can't go hand in hand, but they can, because he wasn't lying. At no point did he lie to me, manipulate me, or try to hurt me in any way. He was just straight up honest about what he was, what he wanted, what he did, and it was no bullshit. And so that was a man. That was a healthy, masculine man being a player. And he, you know, he was awesome at it. He did a great job being what he was. And in making me feel, when he was with me, that I was the only woman that mattered. You know, like, he never even let on that another woman was a factor, even though I knew that they were. So, you know, had he been in his unhealthy masculine, he could have lied and said, no, I haven't been with anybody in a long time, I'm crazy about you. He could have lied. Or, you know, unhealthy masculine would have been like, well, yeah, but, we haven't slept together yet, and you haven't been giving me any, so, what do you expect? Unhealthy masculine turns it around on the woman and makes it her fault. He makes his choices her fault because he feels guilty about those choices in some kind of way. And instead of just owning it and saying, well, this is what I wanted to do and I did it, and that's who he was. He didn't try to explain it. He didn't try to apologize for it. Yeah, I slept with someone. But we weren't in a relationship, and we weren't going to be in a relationship. So in that moment where we were at in my life, I was fine with that. I made that choice to go home with him and have sex with him. And it was some of the best sex I've ever had. I'm glad that I did it because, it opened me up in a whole new way. Like, I connected with him at every chakra except for one. So we had the spiritual connection, we had the intellectual connection, we had the verbal communication connection, we had the heart connection. Even though we weren't in love, we still adored each other, respected each other, and had an immense love and passion for everything in the world. So we were connected there. And, third chakra, we were connected, in the realm of creativity and passion. He woke that up in me again that had been suppressed from a previous unhealthy relationship. And then, second chakra, we had our, that safety, that level of safety and trust. And, I just felt secure with him, even though I knew he was a player. And I also knew that he wasn't lying to me and that he was just being real. And the only one that we didn't connect at was the root chakra, because I couldn't get rooted in the relationship because it wasn't going to be a relationship. We weren't going to go anywhere. It wasn't going to be anything. So consequently, which I didn't understand this at the time, but now that I really understand chakras and, how everything works, I couldn't orgasm in that relationship and that sex because I wasn't rooted in it. And we had sex all night. It was an all-night event. Like, I have never seen a man go and go and go. Like, we'd take like an hour break and just lay and cuddle and talk. Like I said, endless conversation. It never got boring. And then we'd go at it again, and then another hour to chill, and we go at it again. And this was all night. And even though it was like so amazing and so intense, I was never able to orgasm. And now what I understand is that this has been a lot in my relationships. I've never orgasmed with a man. Like, no guy has ever been able to do it. And I realize it's because most of my relationships that I've gone into, I never get attached to the outcome. I would like it to be more. I don't just sleep with somebody and think, hey, I just want to get laid for a night. But, there's always this, subconscious level where I want to be in a relationship with them and I want more than just sex. But I was never really clear on what I wanted, really. I was never clear on whether or not I wanted marriage or clear if I wanted kids or not. It was always, I was never rooted in myself and what I wanted, and neither were the men. So going into the sex part, we couldn't get rooted together in any kind of way. So even when I was with a man that, that was the type that was like, hey, I'm in love with you, let's, move in together. Like, when I have dated guys like that, I guess you would call the clingy type. They were quick to want to move in and have the happily ever after, and it scared me. And I became like the guy in a relationship and kind of ran, like, no, I'm not ready for this, because I wasn't rooted and I didn't know if that's what I wanted yet. I knew I wanted the relationship. I knew I wanted something long term and monogamous, but I didn't know if I wanted a child. I didn't know if I wanted marriage. I didn't know if I wanted all of that. So we weren't rooted in that relationship. Even if they were, I wasn't, and so now I understand, like, that's why I've probably never been able to orgasm with a man, is because I'm never rooted in that relationship, because I know it's never going to be anything more than what it is. So, just going back to that particular relationship, as amazing as it was, I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. So I really couldn't let myself go at all levels. And, that's what I'm seeking, like, in a relationship now. Like, the reality, the real conversation, sitting in that darkness, and being rooted in that relationship, and clearly communicating what we both want and don't want. And that's going to take a man that's in his healthy masculine to be able to do that, to be able to sit with me and not run and not avoid the healthy communication, because they're afraid. They're afraid to go deep, because when you start to go deep, you start uncovering layers of themselves that they are not comfortable uncovering. They start to see all these parts of themselves and why every relationship they've had has failed, and it's challenging. I've been there, I've done it. I'm always uncovering layers of, myself that I've experienced from these relationships. And that's why I talk so much about relationships. People say, oh, why you harp on the past so much? Why you're always talking about, previous lovers and past relationships? Because I know men hate that. They hate to hear about past lovers. But that's my goal. That's my experience. That's what I've learned from. I don't talk about my past because I'm still hung up on it. I don't talk about past lovers because I'm still hung up on them or want them. I talk about them because they've been my teachers. They have been my learning experiences, and they have made me who I am and stronger. Even though they may have hurt like hell at the time, they've made me a better person. So, I don't shy away from talking about my past. I don't think it's something that, I think more people need to talk about their past and, and understand, why they've done the things that they've done. And, if I'm going to be in a relationship with somebody, I want to know their past. I want to know why every girlfriend they've ever had has gone no contact with them. Why did the relationship end? Did they get dumped? Were they the dumper? Did they cheat? Did the other person cheat? I want to know these things because, they're a reflection of character. Sometimes, yeah, people do cheat and they can reform themselves from that. But sometimes it goes well beyond cheating, and, that's a darkness that you need to know, that you need to sit with them in that darkness and be introduced to those monsters in a real way, and not a fantasy, not some telepathic fantasy, because it's not real. It's nice and it's fluffy and it feels good, but it's not real. So communicate, acceptance, accept yourself, accept others, accept what you can change and refuse to accept what you can't, and just learn to communicate in a healthy way, and get clear about what you want in yourself, for yourself, in a partner, and be willing to communicate that with someone, and the right people will come into your life that will want to communicate on your level of communication, and they'll understand you the way that you want to be understood. So yeah, I think that's all I have today on communication and understanding and acceptance. So maybe more will come up later, I don't know, but I think I've ranted long enough. So y'all have a great day.